This is CGTN, China Global Television Network. Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Juliette Mown. Our top stories this hour. Israel orders a complete siege of the Gaza Strip as the death toll from attacks by Hamas rises to at least 800, while 500 Palestinians inside the enclave have died in retaliatory strikes. Israel deploys troops near its border with Lebanon as fears grow that the fighting could escalate into a wider regional conflict. And urgent calls for medical aid in Afghanistan after Saturday's powerful earthquake. Rescuers continue to pull victims from the rubble. Israel has ordered what it calls a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, cutting off electricity and water supply, as well as food and fuel. It comes after the Palestinian armed group, Hamas, launched surprise attacks against Israel over the weekend, killing at least 800. Now, inside Gaza, more than 500 Palestinians have died as Israel hits back with retaliatory airstrikes. Our correspondent Paul Hawkins reports.
Gaza, pounded by Israeli artillery, hundreds are dying as Israel reacts to Saturday's atrocity. Keshta, searching through the rubble for his family. Israel has already cut the power here. The water will also be turned off. The cycle of violence continues. Retribution for Saturday's attack, which left at least 700 dead, including 260 at this rave in southern Israel. Gunmen opening fire at will and taking hostages, including this girl, Shani Luke, her semi-naked, motionless body taken away on a pickup truck, leading to this appeal from her mother. At least 100 hostages were taken to Gaza from 27 areas in southern Israel, including the wife and 2 daughters of this man.
The last 24 hours were very difficult. I tried to stay strong. It's not simple to know that your 2 babies and your wife, your entire family, the most precious thing you have is captive.
Most countries have condemned the attack, including the US, which called it unprecedented and appalling, and China, following a UN Security Council meeting on Sunday.
Really important is to prevent the further escalation of the situation and further casualties of civilians, and also what's also important is really to come back to the 2-state solution and the peace process. We condemn all attacks against the civilians.
In diplomacy, language matters, and more so when talking about one of the world's longest-running and bloodiest conflicts. Hundreds of thousands of Israeli troops line the 60-kilometre Gaza border. At the moment, it's a siege. The world is waiting to see if it'll become an invasion and a journey for everyone into uncharted waters. Paul Hawkins, CGTN.
Well, let's talk to our correspondent Noor Harazin, who's in Gaza. Noor, Gaza continues to be hit by Israeli airstrikes. What's the situation there now?
Well, a new series of Israeli airstrikes hit the Gaza Strip, targeting farms, sites, houses, buildings. One of the latest strikes was just 200 meters away from our current location, when the Israeli warplanes targeted Al Abbas police station in central Gaza City. Before, we were talking about hundreds of families who are residing in and close to the borderline between Gaza and Israel that had to fled their homes to central Gaza and take shelter in the UN schools. However, now we are reporting the Israeli attacks in central Gaza and in places where the people thought that it is the safest for them here and that it is they can take a shelter basically here. However, the latest Israeli attacks on Gaza shows that there is no place safe in Gaza until this moment. moment, and we can clearly hear the Israeli warplanes hovering over Gaza. The situation here is deteriorating. The health ministry said in a statement today that the situation in Gaza's hospital is going from bad to worse. They are running from out of fuel, which is threatening the lives of thousands of Palestinians. At the same time, Abu Ubaidah, who is the spokesperson of Al-Qassam Brigades, which is the militant wing of Hamas, said in a statement today that one Israeli prisoner who was captured by the fighters yesterday was killed in one of the Israeli raids on Gaza today. I think by this, Hamas is trying to send a message that the Israeli airstrikes on Gaza is not only killing Palestinians, but it also is killing Israelis.
Noor, thank you very much for that update. And that's Noor Harazin, our correspondent in Gaza. Let's speak to our correspondent, Stephanie Freed, now. She's in Tel Aviv. Stephanie, look, sirens have been sounding out across Israel. What's the latest where you are?
Well, I'm in Tel Aviv, and we've been traveling around quite a bit today. We've been in central Israel and Tel Aviv, so it's been on and off. Wherever we've been, there have been sirens, and just now we're getting reports of sirens going off around Jerusalem. So it's been throughout the day, reports of sirens and launches of rockets throughout the country, throughout the day, including about 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers south of here. We've got reports of some direct hits, as well as a rocket falling near the airport, near the international airport. Right now it's quiet, and I would say extremely quiet, meaning if you talk about let's go to the mood, Israel's shut down. Schools are closed. It's somewhat of a state of emergency. Businesses are pretty much shuttered, and this is usually a teeming with touristy area where I am, the Lookout in Jaffa, which is a mixed Muslim, Christian, Jewish area. It looks out over Tel Aviv. Nobody's here. Really, there are very few people here, and that's what we've seen throughout the country. In terms of what we're seeing as well, within the last few hours on the northern border with Lebanon, an infiltration. Israel's army apparently killed the infiltrators. There were mortars fired, and residents of the north have been told to get into their bomb shelters, and that's just in recent hours. Also, reports that we're getting surfacing now after mass numbers of people were killed on Saturday by the Hamas operatives that infiltrated, and among them 9 U.S. citizens, 12 Thai workers. We're also hearing reports of German nationals, and the latest in terms of politically, diplomatically, getting reports that various countries, including the EU, are considering cutting funding or Palestinian funding. No details on that yet.
Stephanie, you mentioned the northern border and some action happening around there. I mean, Israel's gathering troops for what it's described as the largest operation ever. So what is the next move?
Well, the guess is that's exactly what the next move is, the largest operation ever, and as much. The spokesperson for the Israeli army told me that yesterday. He said that this is going to be unprecedented. He said just as this attack on Saturday, or a multi-pronged attack on Saturday was unprecedented in scope historically, that's going to be the response as well. What does that mean? Well, we can expect a ground incursion. That's what we're basically expecting, and that's what we were seeing when we were down around the Gaza border on Sunday, seeing heavy military vehicles, artillery, all moving toward the Gaza Strip, tanks, APCs, personnel, all moving in that direction, which would lead one to believe that as well. And going back to the northern border, the U.S. is sending a strike fleet, the USS Gerald Ford. It's apparently their largest strike fleet, with fighter jets and aircraft carriers. And that really is to send, as we understand, a deterrent. It's to send a message to Hezbollah in Lebanon, to Iran, And that's the understanding. It's there, it's to send a message and will be utilized if necessary.
Stephanie Fried in Tel Aviv, thank you very much for that update. The most important relationship in the world. President Xi Jinping's description of his country's ties with America during talks with US Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer in Beijing. He called for mutual respect and a stabilization of relations amid recent tensions over security and trade. It's the latest in a string of high-profile visits to China by US leaders, with Schumer reaffirming that Washington does not seek conflict nor decoupling with China. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, calls for medical aid in earthquake-hit Afghanistan as the search for victims continues. We'll hear from the regional head of the UN Children's Fund next.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans, grey rhinos, and unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
Well, China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us.
And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
Events have consequences. Words create impact.
One more offensive in a long line of battles that's been ongoing for more.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots. Excuse us.
The world today matters for your world tomorrow.
The number of casualties is growing quickly.
Why, this is one of the hardest hit towns in the region.
The world today, every day on CGTN.
Welcome back. A reminder of our headlines. Israel orders a complete siege of the Gaza Strip as the death toll from attacks by Hamas rises to at least 800, while 500 Palestinians inside the enclave have died in retaliatory strikes. And Israel deploys troops near its border with Lebanon as fears grow that the fighting could escalate into a wider regional conflict. Rescuers in Afghanistan are continuing to search for victims of a powerful earthquake that struck on Saturday. The Taliban administration says at least 2,400 people have been killed after the 6.3 magnitude quake hit villages in Herat province in the west of the country. Roads remain blocked and teams are struggling to reach remote areas. The UN and other aid organisations are working to provide humanitarian supplies. Sadiq Ibrahim is the head of UNICEF's Western Regional Office. Thank you for joining us. So what are your teams telling you about the current situation?
Thank you very much for having me. Not just the team telling me, in fact, I was out in the field myself. Yesterday, I visited a number of villages, and I have seen the level of the devastation that the communities in these villages are going through. Just to describe it very briefly, this is practically, and in, let me say, real sense, the village is completely wiped down to the ground. There are no buildings standing. The only exception in one village I have seen, there was a health center that has been maybe constructed like 15, 20 years ago from concrete and hard brick. It's completely, let me say, cracked. The building is not usable, very dangerous for anybody to walk inside. Looking at the school, again, the school is completely wiped. It's on the ground. It's made of local material by the community efforts. They built it for their children. Everything is completely disappeared. The houses, absolutely nothing is standing. The efforts of the rescuers actually still, as of yesterday and also today, my team has reported, they're still digging under the rubble, trying to rescue and find bodies of their relatives. Almost every household in those villages have actually lost, some of them 6, 7, 8 members of their families. And I met one young man who's in the, let me say, late 20s. I asked him, he told me nobody has left from his family. He's the only one remaining. And the striking thing that I also noticed, which is very, very hard to actually come to terms with, you look at all faces of all the people in all the villages that I visited, there is a very high level of trauma and shock. People still have not comprehended. I went yesterday, Sunday, the earthquake happened on Saturday, very high level of trauma and shock. People are still trying to digest and absorb what has happened to them. So it's complete loss of property, assets, and so forth. Yes.
So incredibly hard to come to terms with. Considering the worst affected areas, I mean, what would you say the biggest challenge is then for aid agencies like yours to get help through, not just to rebuild those structures and those homes, but to help the people come to terms with that trauma?
I think that the major challenge is how can we restore and provide the services that previously we were providing and supporting those communities, like health, nutrition, water, sanitation, getting the schools to keep running, and the children continue their education. The child protection services, like the psychosocial support, the child-friendly spaces for people to have a space to play and to engage and interact with other children. These are for us the major challenges, including also getting people back to their livelihood. This is an agrarian community. They have lost quite considerable of their livelihood. How can we get all of these people back? The shelter issue, getting their houses so that they can have shelter. Let us remember, in Afghanistan, the winter is approaching, and I think by the end of this month, the temperature will be in the minus, and how can these people survive? They need blankets, they need heating material, they need food, things, and all these essential survival elements that we need to make sure we provide. The challenge is coming, the remoteness of the area, very poor roads, network is very erratic and very poor, and became bad during this earthquake. Yes, so please go ahead.
A lot of work to be done. We're out of time. I'm terribly sorry. Sadiq Ibrahim, thank you very much, though, for your insight. Sadiq Ibrahim from UNICEF. Ukraine's president has appealed to NATO members not to withdraw into internal disputes and to rally against terror and aggression. Volodymyr Zelensky addressed a meeting of the alliance in Copenhagen after the Hamas attack on southern Israel. He confirmed that 2 Ukrainian citizens were among the dead. It comes as Russian shelling in Kherson at the weekend killed 2 civilians, with Kyiv warning of a record number of drone attacks by Moscow over the winter. Well, we can speak now to our correspondent Megumi Lim, who's in Kyiv. Megumi, what else has Zelensky been saying?
Well, obviously, Ukraine was very high on the agenda at the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, but of course, Israel was also a huge focus. And President Zelensky was very clear in his condemnation against Hamas's attack on Israel as he addressed the NATO Parliamentary Assembly via video link. He said we must not give terror a single chance. And he also drew some parallels between Hamas and Russia. He said that Hamas has used a similar tactic as Russia has. And he said that the world can agree on a set of definitions defining what terrorism is. He said, do not rape women, do not kill, do not consider children as trophies, and do not fill villages and towns with blood. And as this conflict has continued on, Zelensky may have also made an indirect reference to Republicans in the U.S. Congress as they continue to feud over how to choose their next House Speaker. He said that this is not the time to withdraw from the international arena into internal disputes.
Megumi, Ukraine's warning about a possible rise in drone attacks over the winter months. What can you tell us about that?
That's right. Over the weekend, the Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson Yuri Ihnat said that Ukraine is expecting a record number of drone attacks this coming winter months. He said that last year, during the winter months, Russia launched about 1,000 drones over the course of 6 months. But he said that this year, in this month of September, the month of September alone, Russia has already launched 500 Iranian-made Shahed drones. And as we know, on top of the drones that Russia has procured from Iran, they have begun to build manufacturing facilities for these drones, and we know that there will be a larger stockpile of these drones that Russia will have. So indeed, Ukraine is expecting more drone attacks, and Zelensky today, as he addressed the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, again stressed the importance and need for more air defense systems in this coming winter months in Ukraine.
Megumi Lim in Kyiv, thank you very much. Senior politicians in Russia are discussing whether to revoke the ratification of a ban on nuclear weapons testing. It comes after President Vladimir Putin hinted that the country could resume nuclear testing for the first time in more than 3 decades. Our correspondent Dasha Chernyshova is in Moscow. Dasha, members of the Duma are meeting to discuss this. What can we expect?
Well, that's right. The lawmakers from the Russian State Duma are getting back to their lawmaking activities, and they have a lot of legislations and bills on their agenda. Among them, they are expected to discuss the possible de-ratification of the treaty which bans the testing of the nuclear-powered weapons. Now, we understand this is coming obviously after the remarks made by the Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has been talking about the potential use by Russia of the nuclear weapons. He was suggesting that the United States has not ratified that CTBT, the treaty. It was signed by both Moscow and Washington, but Moscow has ratified it in 2000, and Washington still has not ratified it. So the understanding among the senior Russian politicians is that the possible revocation of this ratification would signal to the United States that they will be on par at the same legislative level. This is the so-called lawmaking parity. We also understand that the Russian politicians are talking about this possibility to make it clear to the United States that this is unacceptable. There has to be the parity. At the same time, the Kremlin was very carefully speaking about this issue, suggesting that it does not mean that Moscow is willing to get back to this nuclear testing. Moscow just wants to have this parity. We also have heard the Russian politicians all speaking about the U.S., saying that the U.S. believes that it is possible for them not to ratify this treaty while demanded from other states. So definitely the Russian lawmakers are expected to look into this matter. In the meantime, the Russian president has been outlining only 2 issues, only 2 causes for the Russia to use its nuclear weapons if the country is under attack by the nuclear weapons or if it faces an existential threat. He suggested that there is no need to change the doctrine which provides for that, and none of those cases has been so far in the making.
Thank you very much, Dasha. Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow. Well, from spicy Sichuan flavours to traditional dumplings and wontons, South Africans have been sampling a wide range of Chinese cuisine at an Asian food festival in Cape Town. Our correspondent Julie Shah went along.
Hello and welcome to Cape Town's Chinatown. Today we're jumping right into the vibrancy and delicious food that can be found at this Asian food market.
As you walk around, sizzling woks and delicious aromas fills the air as people queue to buy their favorites.
We're working our way through each stall, tasting everything that each vendor has to offer. So I'm having pork fried wontons, and they're really good. So yeah, we're just spending the day spoiling ourselves at the market.
I absolutely love Chinese food. If it wasn't for festivals and restaurants like this, I don't think I'd be exposed to enough of the culture and the food especially. Besides anything else, it's absolutely delicious.
Chinese cuisine is a vital part of culture, and its diversity is what attracts hundreds to this fair.
Twice a year they have these wonderful food festivals, and it's not just for the Chinese to showcase their many offerings, and it's also a chance for people who've never had a chance to go out of their way, because most of the time you have to go and seek and find these little hidden treasures. Here you have about 14, 15 stalls all under one marquee. It is an eye-opener because you get to say China is such a big country, and to see so many different types of cuisine, whether it be Sichuan and spicy to vegetarian to our own pork wontons here, you get a chance to try the whole different regions of China all in one afternoon.
Every province got different food. So you can get any food here. That's as you wish. So wish everybody will enjoy it. And our staff work so hard for this every time.
Over 15 years, this Chinatown has created a fun family atmosphere that shares discovery and connection.
Cheers!
And let's not forget how delicious these dishes are as they tantalize taste buds.
I think it's affordable, and the taste is multiple tastes compared to the Western food. And the main point is all the things we can always cook and make out by ourselves. But the main point is the taste, because you can't have the same taste. So people will pursue the unique taste of the Asia side.
What a fantastic Asian food market filled with delicious dishes, mouth-watering delicacies, and exquisite cultural exchange. We will bring you here next time. Julie Shara, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
Our headlines again. Israel orders a complete siege of the Gaza Strip as the death toll from attacks by Hamas rises to at least 800, while 500 Palestinians inside the enclave had died in retaliatory strikes. Israel deploys troops near its border with Lebanon as fears grow that the fighting could escalate into a wider regional conflict. And urgent calls for medical aid in Afghanistan after Saturday's powerful earthquake. Rescuers continue to pull victims from the rubble. And that's the world today. Thanks for watching. We're back with more news at the top of the hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight with Tian Wei. For now, from me and from all the team here in London, goodbye.
Hello and welcome to Europe's weather forecast. Starting with wet weather conditions on Tuesday and Wednesday, you could have precipitation developing across the north and also east on Tuesday and Wednesday because of the active low pressure systems. Especially as we look into Wednesday, rainfall in a forecast across majority of Norway. The rainfall will also drive down the temperatures, especially in the north and the east, going back to in the single digits. On the contrary, for much of the central part, clear sky will have temperatures go back to lower 20s. Take a closer look at a city forecast. You could have upper teens for daily highs in Copenhagen, Stockholm, with a chance of light rainfall in the morning hours. Moving to Helsinki, see 12 to 7 rain chances. Also, down to Minsk and Kiev, mid-teens for daily highs. Over to Moscow, 8 to -3, partly sunny sky to light rain on Wednesday. Back to Western Europe, you could still have 23 to 14 in London and see 28 to 12 for folks in the city of Paris. Cloudy conditions down to Madrid and the Lisbon high speed around a 30-degree mark, especially in Madrid, 30 to 9. You better notice more than 20-degree gap in the morning and evening hours. That's it for now. Stay tuned for more city forecast.